This is Ryan Cantor, and I am joined by the Quacking Tiger. You know him from Twitter, from Shakin the Southland. He is an excellent follow. If you're not already following him on Twitter, be sure to do that and check out Shakin the Southland, where you'll see his posts. QT, thanks for joining, man.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, Ryan.
Well, let's continue our conversation. So we just posted a video about offensive line, Ronan O'Connell, so we won't talk about Ronan O'Connell here. But let's talk about the rest of these offensive recruits in the class of 2024. I'll let you jump in. Let's talk about wide receivers. So Bryant, Wesco, TJ Moore, your initial thoughts.
Well, I mean, the first thing, I love these graphs, by the way. The first thing that you see is there's no quarterback commit here, right? And that's got to be noted. We talked about it in the last video a little bit. It kind of gives you an asterisk for this this offensive class. But I'm really excited about Wesco in particular. And these two wide receivers give us the level of talent that we've been wanting in the past kind of two classes to elevate that room. And particularly, I'm a big fan of Wesco. I think he's absolutely a 5-star. I know some of the services have him lower, but he's a 5-star talent and gives you the wide receiver U level of talent that we've kind of been struggling with, particularly in battles with Ohio State and their wide receiver coach, whose name I'm not going to say, curse his name. No, just they've done a really good job on the recruiting trail at Ohio State and taken a few of those guys that we would have otherwise landed in past recruiting classes, I think. So I'm really, really encouraged by these two, and I hope that we'll add another wide receiver / athlete in the future that we're battling for Mike Matthews, and that I think is an important recruitment for the offensive side of the ball, and just maintaining the level of talent, elite talent on the roster.
Yes, adding Mike Matthews would make this quite the trio of wide receivers. I think what's interesting about kind of a storyline with these two big wide receiver recruits, Clemson obviously used to have great wide receiver play. It's been of my opinion that, obviously you had Streeter, you had Tony Elliott, perhaps struggling at offensive coordinator. You also had DJ Uiagalelei, perhaps struggling at quarterback. But I thought, just to the eye, what was the biggest struggle was very poor wide receiver play. Even when Justin Ross came back, he had the pick. There was the pick 6 against Georgia, which Coach Sweeney immediately said was a poor route and effort by Justin Ross. So just really bad wide receiver play. So I'm curious, Tyler Grisham, wide receiver coach, how much of that is coaching, how much of that is recruiting, and how much of that is changing with some of these great guys, big-time recruits coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the puzzle that most, of us who are like way too invested in Clemson football have been thinking through and wanting to figure out, has this been a gradual decline from Tony Elliott's system kind of becoming more stale and Streeter not really injecting any, new ideas or principles or schematic kind of changes that would freshen up the offense or radically overhaul the offense, which is what I thought was going to happen with Streeter. And, because he had success as an offensive coordinator in the past at his other stops. And so, yeah, I think I think Grisham has dealt with a bunch of things. He hasn't recruited at the same level as Jeff Scott before him. Although I think that some of Scott's later classes were not as good as
not at all.
Yeah,
I was just going to say a Joe and Ladson and Ngata, and I don't remember if EJ was in Grisham or Scott, but that whole group there never panned out.
And then and then the question is, well, was that because of schematic limitations that didn't showcase their talent? Was that a wide receiver coach who couldn't get the best out of that talent? Was it, soft players, and we put in, I don't like to call out players, but was this players who were not, I don't know. Yeah, we'll just say
play through injury.
Not playing through injuries and a coach who couldn't get them to the level on the field, getting them out on the field. Or was it all of those kind of things coming together in a way that were outside of the abilities of any coach to be able to control? So I think this is a really big year for Grisham. And I think that when Coach Sweeney was calling out some of the coaches, he was right to do that. Like everybody was on notice, and because they hadn't performed either in recruiting or in kind of elevating the level of talent, despite what limitations could have been from past recruiting classes and things like that. So I think it's like this is the year put up, or shut up kind of a year. You have a new offensive coordinator with a system that has been proven. So we need to get the talent up to the level that was showcased at a place like TCU. And it's like we should be able to have the same level of wide receiver talent as TCU had last year.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. And I think that absolutely Tyler Grisham if we land Mike Matthews, that's the best wide receiver class in the nation, I think. And because I'm that high on Wesco, and I think TJ Moore is a great prospect as well. Definitely a top 100 player. I'd have him slated about, between 50 and 75, I think, when it's all said and done. And adding Mike Matthews is just this injection of talent. And Matthews may be a better actual DB than he is a wide receiver, but he gives you that level of elite playmaker talent that Clemson needs.
Before I move off wide receivers, any comps that are reasonable, especially if you can give comps that are like former Clemson guys? Like, is there a Sammy Watkins type, a T. Higgins type, anything like that among these wide receivers?
Well, I think that T. Higgins was my guy who was like I think I labeled him like the soon to be best Clemson wide receiver ever. So it's hard to put Wesco with Higgins, but I think he translates or profiles as that kind of an athlete and playmaker, kind of bigger, but kind of deceptively able to get separation, great hands, goes up and high points the ball. And then TJ Moore is a bit similar, a player in terms of like being able to get down the field. But he's a bit more, I think, of an athletic body. And I'm not sure who like the correct comp is, because neither of them are like burners the way that, some of our past wide receivers were. But yeah, I think
neither of them's like a Jacoby Ford.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. No, neither are Jacoby Ford or Ray McLeod. Like they're more X type of receivers that are going to run, deeper posts and things like that.
Gotcha.
But I could see TJ Moore kind of playing in the slot, perhaps as like a more athletic and who was the the wide receiver who played with the Seahawks all those years back? Oh, this is gonna kill me. I shouldn't have said that now.
Well, if you think of it, you could shout it out.
Let's go on.
Let's talk about Coach CJ Spiller. So, kind of 2 classes in a row, he didn't get his first choice. Let's just say Keith Adams Jr. one year, and then kind of 2 3-stars the next year. But in 2024, he landed David Ajamame from North Cobb, a kind of, again, like a lower but still a 4-star from the 24/7 composite. He runs track, watched his film, really impressive, elusive, but also good top end speed. And then in 2025, he got an even higher rated 4-star in Gideon Davidson out of Virginia. Never any question about CJ Spiller as a coach in terms of getting the most out of his players. Obviously Maffa and Shipley have been excellent at Clemson, and they even, with limited depth or finding walk-ons who are great with Dominique Thomas. But now seeing it recruiting, your thoughts on Ajamame, Davidson, if you've looked that far ahead, and CJ Spiller.
Yeah, no, I'm just happy that we aren't waiting to the very end to get a running back recruit. That's refreshing in and of itself. I did remember the name of the player was Jerron Brown.
Yes, I knew that's who it was, and it was killing me too.
Maybe a little bit more athletic. I think of the world of Jerron Brown, so that's that's why I make that comp. I thought he was a really underrated player that was an important part of that. Spiller absolutely has knocked it out of the park with these 2. Brought them in early. For the 2024 class, we've got someone who's been leading the charge in recruiting online, right? Has a Twitter presence.
Yeah.
Has really done an amazing job of kind of trying to behind the scenes solidify the class in ways that you really want someone, especially without a quarterback in this class, because usually that's the role of the quarterback, right? To attract the talent and to, you know, reach out to people and things. And so I think that is an important piece for Clemson. And these two running backs for these 2 years are going to be really important because, you know, Shipley and Maffa, I'm not sure are going to be around all that much longer, just in terms of, you know, running back shelf life and things like that. That going to the NFL is a wise move. So, and if they have the kind of years that we expect both of them to have, I think they'll be well positioned to enter the draft in the off season. Yeah. As much as I would like them to stick around for coach years and beyond, senior years.
Well, Phil Maffa had the highest PFF grade of anyone on the offense, so I've been a big advocate of him getting a fair shake of the carries. I have heard that some of the NIL dollars they get and how they're sort of, I don't know if penalized is the word, but not drafted as highly as other positions in the NFL draft. I do feel like one of them could stay for their senior year. But yeah, your point remains the depth there for the depth leaving will make Ajalame and Davidson absolutely critical.
Yes, and a plug for using NIL to retain and maintain players is very important in modern college football. And I'll stop with my NIL soapbox. We could go on for an entire episode, I'm sure, about that.
Yeah, I do get the sort of reading the tea leaves that's what Clemson's getting decent at rather than, you know, buying transfer players. But let's move to the position we haven't talked about yet, which is tight end, Christian Betancourt. Tell me, how is he different than Jake Briningstool? And I mean that in the most positive way because I love Jake Briningstool and think he's going to break out. But tell me, how is Betancourt different?
Yeah, you know, he's not as long, he's not as tall, but it is the same kind of mold, and we're seeing, you know, this version of the tight end is really who we're recruiting to right now. Somebody who can, I think that Betancourt can maybe play on the line a little bit more than Briningstool. But I mean, you know, there aren't many players like, I'm really hopeful that Jake Briningstool has a breakout year this year, and that he really shows that he is an elite level talent, especially when that guy at UGA is doing so well, and someone who was interested in Clemson, but we weren't as interested in him. So
right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Betancourt is a quality prospect, the same kind of mold, and profiles, to me at least, like a Davis Allen type of talent right now, and that kind of range of talent.
Cool. Well, I don't want to spend a ton of time on kicker, but it is notable that Clemson used a scholarship on a kicker. Your thoughts on that? Is it philosophy? And just, I don't know how much you've looked into Nolan Hauser specifically, but any thoughts on him? And we'll wrap on the offense there.
I mean, I don't, you know, try to act like I'm an expert on kickers. They are very hard to measure for, you know, any kind of recruiting tool or whatever. Like, everybody is like the top kicker in the world, right? So it's hard. I mean, I don't have a problem spending a scholarship on a kicker. The coaching staff will send out feelers and they'll say that they have a scholarship available, and like every kicker will come in, right? Because everyone wants that scholarship, right? So they get to take them into camp and they get to see them kick, and then they make their decisions. I think Potter was the last guy that I was really like, watched his film and just was like, wow, that player must be offered. He's in your backyard in Rock Hill, and you have to offer Potter. And I think that worked out pretty well. I've watched the film, and I don't know if I'm qualified to really say anything on like distance and angles and like kicking ability. It looks fine. And, you know, I do trust the coaches. I think that we have a pretty good track record of having brought in decent kickers over the years. Positive things. I mean, I've heard nothing negative about like taking Nolan Hauser, and I think his 3-star ranking does show that in the industry, at least. For however, I mean, they don't really focus on kickers that much in the recruiting industry. But, you know, to give him a 3-star ranking does say something.
Cool. Well, if you're not already, if you're on Twitter, follow QuackingTiger or check out Shakin the Southland where you can find his posts. This is actually part 2 of a multi-part interview I'm doing with QuackingTiger. Don't miss it. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them.